This is the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's historic visit to India with his wife, Coretta Scott King. And we're really honored to partner with US Asian, with API, the NAACP, and the American Jewish Committee. I'd like to have our first speaker, Ann Schaeffer, make some welcoming remarks.
Ambassador Sanku, Ambassador Mshlapo, Secretary Kana, honored guests, Hilary Shelton and Stan and Marion Bergman, Dean Jane, and friends. Good evening. My name is Ann Schaeffer, and I'm very pleased this evening to represent AJC as director of its Belfer Center for American Pluralism, along with our longtime partners, the NAACP and API, and our newest partner, US Asian. It is my pleasure to welcome you all here tonight. A psalm of King David comes to mind. Hine ma tovu ma'anayim, shevet achim gam yachad. How wonderful it is for us to be together. How good it is for brothers and sisters of diverse faiths and backgrounds to dwell together in unity. How good it is for us to come together to find our moral voices, to urge our elected leadership to work for a just, inclusive America. And how good it is for us to mark the 50 years since Martin Luther King Jr. visited India in 1959. And tonight, we will hear many words about the influence that Gandhi had on him. We know that at a time King had in his words, and I quote, despaired of the power of love in solving social problems. When he embraced Gandhi's non-violent action, he understood what it was not, that it was not a way for one group to seize what it wanted from another. It was not a weapon of class struggle or any other kind of division. It was, as he saw it, an instrument of unity. It was a way to remove injustice and restore social harmony for the benefit of both sides. For King, Gandhi's philosophy melded the Christian ethic of love as a, quote, potent instrument for social and collective transformation. The Jewish community has always understood this principle, and AJC's history reflects it. We see that our security and well-being in America can never be at the expense of another group. As we learn from the Hebrew Bible, the stranger who resides among you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. As Martin Luther King would have said of all of us, Indian Americans, African Americans, and American Jews, quote, we may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. And so the work that we do is all about building relationships, trust, and mutual understanding on one level. It is in finding that which we share, and in doing so, we can all succeed. But on another level, it is also about what we do. As Gandhi said so memorably, it is about being the change we want to see in the world. All of us being the change we want to see in the world, and allowing, and I quote again, allowing action to express our priorities. Well, may we ask today, where are they now, those two giants who transformed beliefs and values into action? Let me close by saying once again, Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. How wonderful it is for us to be together. Let us together further the action that expresses our shared priorities for our own communities and for all our communities. Thank you and welcome.
We're really honored to have Congressman Jim McDermott join us this evening. Congressman McDermott is a senior member of the Ways and Means Committee. He's been to India 22 times. He is a physician and served his country as a naval officer. So please join me in welcoming Congressman Jim McDermott.
You could have added to that I've been to Israel on 6 occasions and to South Africa about a dozen times. So I've been in all the countries represented here today, and I want to extend a warm welcome to Ambassador Mira Shankar from India, and the Ambassador, His Excellency from South Africa, Ambassador Wilili Nalapo, and to the other distinguished guests here tonight. It's no secret that I have great affection for both South Africa and India and Israel as well, but the trip that I took last spring with John Lewis and Martin Luther King III and Harris Wofford and Andrew Young to retrace Martin Luther King's steps to India was a remarkable trip. And of course, as you know, Mahatma Gandhi's real philosophy developed out of his experience in South Africa. So all these countries were linked together in a very remarkable way. And it's clear that the world faces a number of very serious problems. But I don't think anyone should doubt that the world can unite to solve its problems and bequeath a better world to future generations. A world built on the philosophy of peace and nonviolence, represented by Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi, is certainly the basis that it can happen. They were both inspired by this. Actually, I think Dr. King said that I go to India not as a tourist, but as a pilgrim. And that's really the nature of the trip that he took. Now, at least as far back as 3100 BC, there are records that describe the role of ambassadors and their relationship between nations. And it's fair to say throughout history that ambassadors have prevented some wars and shortened others. You and those who have gone before you have bridged great issue divides that separate nations from one another. It's not distance, but it's psychology. While most ambassadors are formally appointed by their governments, others are born to serve not one government, but the world, such is the case of Mahatma Gandhi and of Martin Luther King. The language of their diplomacy was really universal. It wasn't born out of a nationalism of anywhere. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, is what Gandhi said. I have a dream, Dr. King said, that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's not nationalism, that's the universal good. These 2 individuals moved billions of people to see what was right and just and to change their nations and our world. They aspired not to greatness. Neither of them ever held a political office. Nobody ever called them honorable. They aspired to something else that was really to change the world, and they succeeded paying with their lives so that others would be better off. We are here tonight to commemorate that historic visit to India 50 years ago by Martin Luther King and his wife, Coretta. The wisdom and the teachings of one inspired the wisdom and teachings of the other. And together they crushed tall mountains of intolerance and injustice into fine sand along the shore of equality and righteousness. It's hard to imagine how one trip a half a century ago could have unleashed the power to change the world forever. But it did. And it left a marker on history that should inspire us to use their wisdom and to continue their journey on the road to peace. As you heard the previous speaker say, I was going to finish with it as well. Gandhi said, you must be the change you want to see in the world. And that's truly what should drive all of us. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Good evening. My name is Nasim Rubin. I'm the American Jewish Committee's Program Director on Indian-Jewish-American Relations. May I invite Dr. Sanku Rao immediate past president of API and an alum of our Indian American Leadership Mission to Israel, to introduce Mr. Stanley and Dr. Marion Bergman.
Thank you, Nasim. I consider it my privilege and an honor today to introduce Mr. Stanley Bergman, who is the chairman and CEO of Henry Schein Inc., the Fortune 500 company and the largest distributor of dental, medical, and animal health products and services to office-based healthcare practitioners. With nearly 13,000 employees and operations and affiliations in 23 countries, Henry Schein has been ranked most advanced in the industry in Fortune's list of the world's most admired companies, has been number one in social responsibility for 5 consecutive years. Stan and his wife Marion and their 2 sons, Paul and Eddie, are active supporters of organizations fostering arts, higher education, cultural diversity, and grassroots healthcare, and substantial entrepreneurial economic development initiatives in the U.S., Africa, and other developing regions of the world. Stan serves on a number of boards in related areas, including the University of Pennsylvania, New York University, University of Wisconsin, Tel Aviv University, Hebrew University, the Metropolitan Opera, Business Council International Understanding, American Dental Association, and the Forsyth Institute, the premier oral health research institute in the United States. Stan also received honorary membership in Alpha Omega Jewish Dental Fraternity. Stan serves on the National Executive Committee of the American Jewish Committee, where the chair of the National Council and the chair of the African Institute. He is a graduate of the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa and is a New York State Certified Public Accountant and a South African Chartered Accountant. He is married to Dr. Marion Bergman, and they do have 2 sons, as I mentioned. Bergman family has been in the forefront of promoting U.S. relations with Africa, Israel, and India, as well as building partnerships between Jewish, American Indian, and African American community in the United States. Mr. Stanley Bergman.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Dr. Rao. Where did you go? Oh, there you are. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ambassador Nklapo from South Africa, Ambassador Mirashankar from India, Congressman, I'm not sure who's here yet, and distinguished guests. My wife, Marion, and myself, both born in South Africa, are most honored to receive this award tonight from a distinguished group, including the NAACP, API, U.S. Asian, and the American Jewish Committee. Indeed, Dr. Martin Luther King's visit to India some 50 years ago was a remarkable episode in history, and of course, a great tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. Congressman Lewis, welcome. The American Jewish Committee, as you heard, is an organization that is devoted to building relations with many communities in this country and abroad. And tonight we are indeed honored to be celebrating the cooperation between the Indian diaspora in this country, the African American diaspora in this country, Africans, more recent immigrants in this country, and of course the Jewish American community. These various minority communities have made a tremendous difference to this country, and it's in that connection that I would like to recognize the professionals of the American Jewish Committee who have worked so hard to foster relations between the various minority communities in this country. And of course, Nasim, you have done a remarkable job. Of course, you're technically very capable, but your human touch of bringing people together is magical. Thank you for what you do for all of us. And Anne Schaeffer, Anne was up here earlier on. Anne, I don't know where you... Anne, what you do through the Balfour Institute for intergroup relations is something that is really wonderful. Most people don't know what you do. It's done behind the scenes, and it's really appreciated. Thank you. And Richard Fulton, I'm not sure if Richard's here, who heads up government relations for the American Jewish Committee. Thank you, Richard. You bring a lot of us together. Thank you. I was born in a place called Port Elizabeth, South Africa. I think those South Africans here will know Port Elizabeth. Port Elizabeth had an area called South End. South End, together with District 6 in Cape Town, were the last of the multiracial communities in South Africa to be dismantled by the apartheid government. My late father had a store in South End. His neighbors on both sides were Indians, a Muslim and a Hindu family on both sides. I grew up in this community, and it was in this community that I learned a lot about the heritage of Indians, Muslims and Hindus alike, and the value system of family, and the value system of caring about education and community. About 4 or 5 years ago, on one of President Mandela's last visits to the United States, Mary and myself had the honor of having dinner with the president. And at the dinner, he mentioned that he got much of his inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi and from Martin Luther King. In many respects, tonight is a celebration of these three great figures, these great overriding figures of the 20th century, because they brought to the world the concept of nonviolence, and not only brought it, but practiced it. And of course, Dr. King said that no single ethnic or religious minority can succeed independently when he spoke of the inescapable network of mutuality. And that's really what the American story is all about. It's about mutuality. And it's especially about mutuality with people that care about a better society. And so thank you all for coming here tonight, because what you're doing is you're caring about a better society. And together, the mosaic of people here today, people of African American background, of African background, several hundred years later, immigrants to America, Indian diaspora, and Jewish diaspora in this country are all here tonight to recognize the mutuality of interest and how we can make a difference. The American Jewish Committee is a century-old organization. We like to think of ourselves as the oldest human relations organization in this country, devoted to pluralism, democratic values, and the advancement of civil and human rights to all people. It is important for every minority in this country's human rights dignity to be respected. And if we respect each other's human rights, we respect the collective human rights and dignity of all of us. The American Jewish Committee has worked carefully on areas of hate, racism, discrimination, and segregation, and in particular very proud of our heritage in the civil rights movement. And the American Jewish Committee remains strongly committed to these values going forward. Now, in addition to the work the American Jewish Committee does in this country, there is a strong outreach to India. The AJC undertakes numerous missions to India, and I think Dr. Rao, you, I think, went on one of these missions. to India and Israel. So the American Jewish Committee works on missions to India, but also India, Israel, the US, through its Project Interchange programs, working with academia, business, and areas of different professions. And in that connection, by the way, we work strongly with organizations such as API, and I have the distinct honor personally of working with API in a business sense, which has been a real honor, Dr. Rao, and you'll mention that to your current president, Dr. Vinod Shah. I forgot the first name for a moment. I was calling Dr. Shah. There is a lot of activity going on in the tripartite relationship between India, the United States, and Israel. And I think we all know that. There is a very successful India-Israel business forum that is actually bringing parties together and creating business activity. And that is very heavily centered in the United States as well with the Indian diaspora. So the triangle of India, Israel, and the United States, from a business point of view, is also moving forward in a terrific way. Now, one of the important institutes of the American Jewish Committee is the Africa Institute. And the goal of the Africa Institute is to raise awareness in this country of the goals of bilateral relations between the United States and specific countries in Africa, and multilateral relationships between this country and African countries in general. There are social responsibility initiatives, but there is much more than that. There's business to be had, and there's professional work to be done with the various professions, from healthcare to other professionals. And the American Jewish Committee's Africa Institute is involved in technical cooperation, advancing technical cooperation between the United States and Africa, United States, Africa, and Israel, and working with civil society and government institutions in Africa to strengthen them. So tonight, I thank you, Nasim and team, for pulling this off. The idea of putting this mosaic together, of bringing diplomats from Israel, from India, from South Africa together, with Congressman, and particularly Congressman Lewis, who I remembered just addressed the American Jewish Committee's annual meeting, and you connected with us, sir, in a very, very personal way to the hundreds of people in the audience. Thanks all the organizations for coming together tonight. You're making a difference. And let me just end with one little thing, Madam Ambassador. 400 million people going to vote in a democratic way. 400 million people is a remarkable achievement. And Mr. Ambassador from South Africa, Ambassador Nhlapo, one of the newest democracies in the world is South Africa. And democracy is alive and well in South Africa. And congratulations to both India and South Africa. You're a role model for the world. Thank you.
We wanted to present this award to Stanley, Dr. Marion Bergman, on behalf of the NAACP, API, US Asian, and the American Jewish Committee, and is jointly presenting this award for community leadership and for strengthening relations between the USA, Africa, Israel, and India.